YPOers, welcome. I'm Shabir Andri, member of YPO Gold London and a member of the board. I'd like you to be upstanding to greet President Kagame. Thank you, Your Excellency, for joining us this afternoon and for being so generous with your time. So my job is quite an easy one this afternoon. I only have to introduce His Excellency and Michiel Haggerty, YPOer, who's going to conduct this fireside chat. So I have a few notes to touch on 3 points from a very vast bio and a background of success of His Excellency. And I'm going to touch on one very personal point as well. And then I'm going to introduce Michiel and hand over to Michiel. So President Paul Kagame had to flee his country of birth when he was 4 years old. At the age of 4, he had to flee his country. He grew up in a refugee camp, and 30 years later, he led a group of youth back in Rwanda to liberate the country. His RPF liberation movement stopped the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. This genocide claimed in excess of 1 million lives. Through President Kagame and his leadership, a failed state was transformed into a globally successful economy, and we will hear more about that. President Kagame is the recipient of the YPO Lifetime Leadership Award for Development and Equality, and he is an honorary member of YPO. I managed to find one area of common ground with the esteemed president, and we were talking about this. I have 3 boys in London who also have the same taste as the president when it comes to football teams. That's soccer for all you Americans out there. And it's a team called Arsenal, and they're known as the Gunners. Wow. President, we have a fan club here. So the president is an avid supporter of Arsenal Football Club. He has also 4 children, so he's a family man. And we're going to hear a lot more about that. Once again, President Kagame, thank you for joining us. A quick 3 points about our past chairman, Michiel Haggerty. So Michiel has been a YPO member since 2000. He's a member of YPO West Michigan. He was on the YPO board from 2014 to 2018 and chairman from 2016 to 2017. Other than being a YPOer, he has authored a book. It's called A Guide to Flourishing Life in a Disorientated Age. This is due to be published, I believe, this summer. Michiel is also the CEO of Haggerty Insurance. This is the world's foremost classic car insurance company. If you have a classic car, more than likely it's being insured by Haggerty, as I found out. One personal fact about Michiel, and soon his lovely wife who is here. We've had the privilege to serve on the board with Michiel and Soon, and they honestly typify everything that is good about YPO. So I can think of no one better to sit here and facilitate this fireside chat on behalf of us with President Kagame. Michiel, over to you.
Shabir. Thank you, President Kagame, Your Excellency. It's really a pleasure for us to have you with us, for you to share some candid conversation about your leadership journey. You've been very generous with your time to YPO members through the years. And I think there are many other YPO things planned in your country coming up. As you know, we're a leadership organization about creating better leaders through lifelong learning and idea exchange. And I cannot imagine a better line of questioning here today than to talk about your own leadership journey and the lessons, some very difficult ones, that you learned along the way, and also how you managed to maintain your life and your family and everything else through all of that. That is the YPO leadership model. We're very grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Let's talk about today, though. Let's talk about the tremendous success of what we see in Rwanda before we go back to maybe some of those more difficult lessons. And if I may mention just a couple of statistics and ask you to comment. 7th most efficient government in the world, 3rd fastest growing economy in the world, World Economic Forum, the most improved country globally in human development since 1990, 2nd best place to do business in Africa, 29th in the world, 11th globally and 2nd in Africa, safest countries in the world. Rwanda was the first nation to ban plastic bags and to achieve gender equality on your cabinet. Incredible gains in female empowerment, with 15% of your cabinet being made up of women. How do you react to these? Are these your KPIs? Are these how you drive your country? Or do you go from a more visionary perspective?
Thank you, Makir. First of all, let me thank you for, and together with your colleagues of YPO, and thank Pascal for inviting me to join you today. I have had the honor and pleasure of being an honorary member of YPO. That happened close to 20 years ago, and when I was still a young president. And
I get the same thing.
maybe
I had hair.
maybe still with some money which I have lost over time, but we are doing fine. So thank you so much. The indicators you have mentioned on global measurement and standard have not happened by accident. It's so much work that has been put into taking our country from devastation to a place of hope. This has largely happened on the account of the efforts of Rwandans, partners like YPO, different individuals who, in their possibilities and capacities, have been a part of the story of Rwanda and decided and chose to be. And I, again, have had the pleasure and honor of being at the center of this journey, or in leadership, if you will, taking my country from total devastation to where it is now with those indicators. So it speaks to many things. It's about the people of Rwanda. It's about how the country and the people of the country have connected with the rest of the world, and it's also about governance. It's about the leadership of the country. So the only answer I can give in short is that it is not by accident. So we can talk about leadership qualities and other things that will come maybe as we move into the discussion, and it is part of it, absolutely, it is a central part of it.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and when many of us look to the bright, shining stories around the world where countries are run with a high interest in developing business, and across all of the different measures that your country has improved, it really is a remarkable, remarkable story, and maybe we can hit on a few of those a little bit later. The first time I saw you speak at a YPO event, it was, I think, back in Denver. Some people may have been at the GLC then. And you talked about how when you first were coming into your leadership, you had a country just completely devastated, as you just described. And I think many of us maybe have tried to turn businesses around and we've had challenging times, but I doubt any of us have entered something with really so little there to take over. I mean, there must have been fires burning everywhere, literally.
Yes.
And yet you picked just one or two things to work on early on that you felt were foundational, and you were very, very focused on those things. How do you, with such incredible devastation and so many things to work on, how do you pick just one or two?
Well, it's very difficult because in that situation, the one we had in Rwanda, everything is a priority.
Yeah.
So picking one priority against another is very difficult. But still you have to go to do it. You've got to find ways of moving forward. And I compare it with when you are building a house, when you construct a house, you definitely start with the foundation. You want something the house will stand on firmly. Much as building the rest, the roof, the walls, and so on, are equally important. But you want all this to stand on a firm foundation. So we started by making sure that Rwandans feel secure, first and foremost, because we are coming from a situation of a tragedy, of fights, of killings, of widespread violence and insecurity. So we had to, and the way to do that, we thought, and eventually that's what helped us, that whoever has a grievance in our society needs to be reassured that one, something is going to change. Two, that they are going to be part of that change. Three, that everyone's need for things to change is being looked at, and that comes through this participation. So that's where we started. And then moved, and this comes through even a discussion, talking to people and saying, what do we do? You have a problem, the other one has a problem, different problems, but we all have problems, and this is our country. So how do we, so you kickstart a process where everyone is engaged first and foremost in thinking and defining what the problem is, and therefore thinking about what is it that actually one can do to start solving the problem. And then moved another step where we said, but there are certain basic things that are necessary, even for people who are thinking like this, to start moving forward. The basic needs for our people, it's food, it's health, it's education for the children, it's, that environment of security has to be also delivering something for them. So that's how we started. And it took many hours of the day. Probably we used to wish that there were 30 hours for the day, but we had only 24. And a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of involvement of everyone, and that's how we started moving. And the moment we had this base, this foundation, then we could say, okay, these priorities are all more or less urgent, but maybe if we tackle one more as we are dealing with the other, then we start seeing things move forward. It's much easier to say it the way I'm saying it than actually delivering on this, but those are the principles and foundations on which we started.
So, early on, in the early days, you had this incredible challenge in that there was this country incredibly divided. You had a number of people who were sort of living outside that you brought back, the people who were the perpetrators of a lot of the tragedy that you were struggling with. And you used a process to help manage through this. I believe it was called
Gacaca.
Gacaca, which is sort of like a public process. And that had to be sort of part of creating an involvement of everybody helping to heal trust.
Right.
Is there anything about that for as a group of leaders that it might be beneficial when we think about our own dispute resolution?
Maybe it will be beneficial. The history to the tragedy we had is also basically a divided society which went to the extreme of hatred and the other extreme, killings, where neighbor killed a neighbor. By the way, some of it doesn't come out as broad as it was. Even some members of one family killed other members of the same family. You had a man and a wife, husband and wife, one deciding to kill and kill the children who don't look like him or her. You can imagine. No. So, or because maybe there were intermarriages and these people had children, and some children either looked like the mother or looked like the father, depending on which side they came from, and this. So it is much deeper than that, it's more complicated than even we say it. But, so division or divisive politics is closely associated with this tragedy. So I hear people sometimes saying, well, no, that is how things happen. You know, people are entitled to their views and people must be different. All that is fine, that's okay, I agree with that. But to the extent that because we are different, then I have the means, or even there is a justification, that one group becomes detrimental to the other, or one individual detrimental to the other to the extent of killing. I think then that suggests that there is a dividing line, there is a line where you stop. In being different and accepting it the way it is, and yes, that's what it should be. You accept it, but you don't use it to harm the other, who is different from you. This is the conversation we have had over a long time, and because of what has happened to us, therefore we've learned to look beyond just divisions and difference and having the right to be different and so on, and said, okay, but this is what we have had, either because people misunderstood it or abused it, or both. So division or divisive politics must be seen as, first and foremost, dangerous in actual fact. And people need to stop confusing being different from being different to the extent that it is harmful to the society. So how far do you go into that? That's up to the people to define. And in fact, this is what a very hard lesson we have learned in our own country, and which we have tried to manage with a lot of complications. Sometimes we get all kinds of attacks or lessons or instructions that, you know, we should be different, we should allow to be, and even misunderstood to the extent that we are actually suppressing this difference. Of course, at the expense of the future stability or freedoms or stability. We have had these discussions, but for us, we are having a discussion on the basis of the experience and the consequences we have had. So it's not that we are just reading books and then going by the rules of textbook and so on and so forth. No, it's about our own experiences. It's about the consequences these things have had on us, where some of the people who give these lessons maybe have never had anything like this. They just hear it remotely from other places. But I have no quarrel with that. We concentrate more on changing our lives, changing our country, and for the better, and drawing from the hard lessons we've learned, and learning from others, and comparing, different things we need to bring into comparison.
Well, and you had to be the leader of all the people, not just the people that you maybe favored when you were helping liberate the country.
Basically, that is the change and the difference we had to make. Yeah. Yes, in fact, from the beginning, these are the lessons, these are discussions we used to have. And that, for example, during the struggle we had to liberate our country, we used to come out clearly that we cannot liberate a country or take the country to a better place by doing things the others we are trying to remove or we have removed have been doing. We have to be different in theory and in practice. And that's what we really focused on, making sure that we understood what our problems were and what our differences were and based on, and how to navigate this very complicated situation to make sure that we deliver what the country wants, what the people want, and what makes the difference for them. From poverty to prosperity, from differences that were harmful to unity of purpose, and what is the purpose, how do we define it, how do we come together to actually make sure we understand it the same way, and that largely has been behind the progress we have made.
So when you've described your leadership before, I've heard you used words like self-reliance, effectiveness, taking personal responsibility, and you've done that tremendously in your own life. You've talked to people close to you. Was that a big part of that personal transformation that you were asking everybody to go through?
It was a big part, almost to a point of obsession. Yes. And again, most of these things we have done, and even based on them made good progress, have also created some controversies about us. And we have accepted that. Being controversial or labeled controversial doesn't kill. What kills is the other one you're trying to address. So we have come to accept that. And we have deliberately moved from one thing to another. We have brought in people to be together to address. We have even been misunderstood when it comes to the aid industry, the development aid. When you have gone out and called upon our people to put in a lot of effort to do many things for themselves and build, in fact, on these capacities brought in by the aid flows. But essentially, the definition of that, as we understood it, and I think even those who have a problem with us understood it that way, but I can't understand why the difference. You use any support, call it aid, to be able to build certain capacities to stand on your own feet. I think this is the definition. But if you are consuming the support, aid, and all kinds of things so that you perpetually depend on that, there's a problem. And I cannot see why it would be difficult for people to see it that way unless there's another problem hidden behind that. So this is what we have said. And we have basically told our people, we said, look, the killings, the violence, the genocide we had, you can imagine we participated in it ourselves. So we participated in harming ourselves. I mean, how stupid is that? and we tell each other frankly like this. You say, can you even turn on your own people, and start killing one another because somebody else has instructed you to do that? So that's what is behind the drive of saying no. Even in fact, before blaming others for those who had a hand in our own problems, let's start with ourselves. Let's examine ourselves. Let's see what is it that we can do for ourselves to correct the wrongs that have happened as we work with others who also want to be helpful. Forget about those who want to be harmful. We can ignore that. We can reject that. But let's do that. So in most cases, therefore, it was another way of mobilizing our people to feel that they have in themselves a big part of what it takes for people to make a difference for themselves.
Fantastic. So let's talk about business. You've built from a country in ruins to just a short period of time, a vibrant economy. I understand, in fact, it was described earlier that the comparisons of the Singapore of Africa. The capital city is incredibly clean. It's vibrant. There's a business community there, and you've been a huge proponent of it. And I'm sure that's why you became an honorary member of YPO even almost 20 years ago. In a room full of business people, how should we be thinking about places like Rwanda when it comes to perhaps making investment, to thinking about the next generation of leaders? What would you like us to know about the business environment that you've helped create?
The story of Rwanda has many parts. There are these things of politics we have had to deal with, governance issues, security, and so on and so forth. But we also understood that the people of Rwanda, young men and women, we all have to be doing something that improve on our well-being individually, even more importantly, and they feed on each other collectively. And what we identified from the outset was how business, doing business, small businesses, investments, trade with each other and with others, all this provide the kinds of things that we need for prosperity. So from the beginning, it starts with maybe as well as 2000. We're thinking of what is it in the environment do we need to avail that will encourage Rwandans to do business, other people from outside to come to Rwanda to do business, to put in their money, to invest, and investments that result into jobs, employment for our people, or different kinds of things. So we therefore put ourselves in the shoes of an outside investor who would say, instead of going to Rwanda, why don't I go to another country to do business of different kinds? and imagined that and started putting in place these things that we were imagining as an outside investor wanting to do business in Rwanda, knowing that there are other considerations to make elsewhere. And that's about competitiveness, that's about, an edge we have to create really over others. And it starts with security, the rule of law, predictability, and freedom to move as a person, but also your capital and other things. So we constituted that, and we even involved some people knowledgeable and well-versed with what was needed from outside and from other experiences, but tailoring it on our own situation. And so that's how we moved on. So for the people in this room who have been to Rwanda, or who have not been there, that I want to invite to come and be part of the story of Rwanda and experience whatever the country can provide for what it is worth. It's that. We want you to come to Rwanda and feel you are in the right place, and you are safe, and you are secure with your investments, and you are free to move in and out and about. So that's really, it took us a long time and hard work and a lot of, so we therefore want to keep seeing the outputs of everyone, or our efforts, of everything we do, minding what are the inputs, what is in between, what are the efficiencies that we can create to facilitate these processes that are taking place by everybody in the country and from outside. This is our story.
Do you have a dream for how the business sector could develop in Rwanda? You had your Vision 2020. Is there a vision beyond?
Apart from creating that environment, the first assumption is that people know what to do. I don't need to tell them what to do. They figure out what is best for them, or what they know best that they can do. And how does this business that Rwandans are doing, or outsiders, or between Rwandans and others from other countries, impact our situation, the Rwandan situation? How does an investor bring in their money, make more money, and therefore that means they benefit, they make profit? How does the country benefit from this? How does it impact us positively? And things start taking shape even without supervising it.
So we're in a few minutes, we'll have a time for just a couple questions for the floor. So if a few people would like to prepare a thoughtful question, which has to sound like a question, by the way, at the end, I'd be happy to take a couple in a moment. But before we move to that, I'd like to just maybe have a few personal learnings from you, if you wouldn't mind, for our YPO audience. So, former military leader, head of state, family man. We were talking behind about you managing the schedule of getting to your kids' graduations next year. How have you learned to balance that all?
Well, like many things, some of it I have learned through the hard way. Let me tell you a quick story. In 1995, my firstborn, 4 years at the time. That's the time everybody in the country was very busy. We would, imagine a situation where you are either having to be on the road in the car for 8-10 hours, different places, or meetings that take 10 hours, or all kinds of. So I used, this son of mine, I used to come at home. I would arrive at home late in the night and leave home very early in the morning. So it is a week. I haven't seen this young man. And one time, I was sleeping. I was about to get up around 5:30, maybe 6. And 4:30 in the morning, somebody's knocking at the door of my room where we are staying. And I thought I was used to people coming in, either my security people or others bringing more times than not bad news, telling me something wrong has happened, so I've got to wake up and attend to it. So when I opened the door, I found my son had moved from his room and was the one knocking, and so when I opened, found him standing there, and so I asked him, "Daddy, where have you been?" And I didn't take much time trying to explain, I've been doing this. Maybe he wouldn't understand some of it. And well, I'm used to situations where my tears flow inwards, not outwards. So I was trying to understand what was going on. And so I promised my son. He said, "I've been around, but I've been up and down. That's why I haven't seen you." But from that time, I made a decision. Whenever I would be around in the capital where I was living, whatever I would be doing, because I first asked the mother, I said, "What time do they actually go to bed?" I even didn't know. She told me the boy goes to bed maybe between 8 and 8:30. So I made a promise to myself that every time, if I'm around, not traveling outside or wherever, at 8, I will have to leave everything else I'm doing and come home, see this boy before he goes to sleep, and then go back to whatever he was doing. So this, therefore, I've spent time on this to try and say, there has to be a balance. It can't be one or the other, or one at the expense of the other. We have to find a combination that works for us as leaders, or for families or friends, and that's what we have tried to do. If you just keep working and you become a workaholic, and sometimes you'll burn out, and with many other dangers. So a balance for family, for work, for activities that contribute to your good health, so that in a way you can be able to keep doing what you are doing, is something I have tried to maintain a balance of.
So even if you're saving the country, bedtime matters.
Yes,
Okay.
it does.
Yeah,
and sometimes you even sleep before you actually want it. You are taking something to read, you are on a couch. I have slept on the couch many times, like many others I know.
Yes, I'm sure many of us have here. Yes. So learning, we're a learning organization. How do you learn? Are you continuously learning? Is there a way that you've built learning into your life as you've developed this country?
Yes, it almost comes naturally, I should say. I'm trying to, I also find, I don't know where it came from, I can't explain it fully, but I'm sort of a detailed person.
I gathered that.
But
we gathered that.
Another time, maybe it has some positives or negatives. I'm picking on so many things in a very short time. Before I'm finished with this, I'm doing something else, and maybe going back to see if so, and when it comes to reading, I'm trying to read almost anything and everything. But there are moments where I pick on a particular thing and also try and concentrate on that, but it overlaps with picking so many things as well. So, and through that, I'm learning, I'm observing, I'm reading, I learn from discussions with the people because I'm curious, I'm asking questions, I'm seeking for advice. I'm not afraid of letting people know that I don't know much. I'm always trying to learn something.
So constantly learning.
Yes.
Constantly learning.
Absolutely.
So final question before a couple of questions from the floor, and we started a few minutes after, so we'll go just a few minutes longer, is your legacy. When you think about this incredible journey of leadership and watching your country transform with you as the leader, how do you think about your legacy a lot? Or are you?
In actual fact, I don't think about my legacy a lot. I don't take much time. What I do, and that helps me, at least even psychologically, to be thinking that I don't need to worry so much about my legacy, is apart from constant learning, which we've just talked about, I'm giving effort, full effort to everything I'm doing. I put in whatever I have to try and do the best I can, to try and deliver as much on what I have to. That is not to mention whatever obstacles or difficulties or failures or what, but my mind is focused on saying, I have to do the best I can. I have to do the best I can with those I have to do it with, or even with those I have to do it for, so that they're part of it. So it's what consumes almost 100% of my time, where I have to do things. Therefore, I know that with time, a month, a year, 10 and more, things are happening that maybe will absorb me or my legacy, and that's the only way I can do it. But along the way, I will also try to measure, and this is what we have done even for the whole country. We try to measure the outcomes of what we are doing. We take 3 years, we take 5, we're saying, this is where we are the other day, this is where we are now, this is so much that has gone into it. Has it given us as much as it should have? Or did we fall short and therefore can we make correction? So this is what takes most of my time, our time, or all of us as we work together, and my team, whether it is the one close to me, it is the cabinet, or wherever I feel I have to reach to achieve that, and I do that a lot. So we knowing that anyway, at the end of the day, when things go wrong, when things are fine, I don't get and I don't need praise or credit. When things go wrong, even if I don't need to be blamed, but I find I have to be blamed. I'm the one to be blamed. So I take responsibility for that with the comfort that there was no other way it was going to be. So all this put together, I don't worry so much about my legacy.
That's wonderful. And it seems like every time you've been in a situation where you've received an award or a recognition, it's done in the honor of the people of Rwanda.
I always do that.
Always. Well,
yes.
it's
Even
tremendous.
the one I got from YPO,
yeah.
it was the same statement.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Very quickly, it's a tremendous. incredible humility and insights. We appreciate that very much. Very briefly, if there are one or two questions, right here, I'll restate them. If you, stand up and I'll restate your question.
Yes. So thank you very much for sharing such an inspiring story about your country. So I visited Rwanda about 6 years ago, and I was incredibly impressed to hear that once a month you come together to do renovation and do whatever is needed in the country, helping elderly homes, renovating roofs, and that you are part of that. And it would be amazing to hear what difference you think that your engagement to build this culture of trust and connectedness to build your country has meant.
Very briefly, you visited Rwanda and you noticed that there's a process in some interval where people get together to clean and renovate things, and it's a sort of rhythm and maybe a duty you've helped create. Can you comment on that?
Yes, it actually helps a lot, both, in terms of the mindset that we want to introduce, or we needed to introduce from the beginning, where we are saying this will be part of something that results into something that is helpful. And we started, for example, we have done it for the last between 12 and 15 years, I think, now. Every month, every Saturday, ending the month, the whole country, it's not just the city of Kigali, it's the whole country. It's a day for doing different activities, one determined by the communities. They come together, but mainly it started and in many cases continues to be cleaning up. We clean, we pick the plastic bags, wherever some careless people have littered them, and we build schools or repair schools, clinics, and different things. Sometimes we have vulnerable people whose houses have fallen on them. We go and, lift the houses up again. And so we do it from 7 to 11 Saturday. That's those hours. And then we have another hour that is going to midday, where the communities will sit and discuss what they might do the next time, or whatever issues there are that they have to let leaders know. And so I participate in that. Symbolism has a lot of, whatever my personal effort is in doing that may not be big to create impact, but my presence has that symbolic value of propelling, the whole
Working
process
alongside
forward.
everybody,
Yes.
making the community
Absolutely.
better. Is there a
Yes.
name for that day?
Yes,
Once a month?
we call it Umuganda.
Umuganda.
Yes, and it is back in our traditions. There's a way, decades, centuries ago, we used to do that. So this is what we picked and brought it.
One more question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President, good to see you again and to have you here. Steve Schallenberger with Becoming Your Best in the Utah chapter. Two questions. One is talking about balance. How do you keep yourself in shape? And the second is, what do you see the greatest opportunity or challenges in the future for Rwanda?
Well, I keep myself in good shape. First of all, I make sure I'm low maintenance. I don't...
Everyone here is low maintenance. I'm sure, yeah. Sure.
So we try to do that. But I do a lot of workouts, maybe 5 times a week. And I try to eat healthy. Things like that. As we said earlier, I find time to rest or sleep whenever I get that chance. Fortunately, I don't lack sleep. I only lack time for sleep. But when I get the time, I really use it. I find it to use it properly. So for the second time we said, the second part,
Challenges and opportunities
yes.
for the future.
Yep.
Maybe a great way to end our session.
I think challenges, there will always be challenges, but there will also be opportunities. There's no question. So we try sometimes to turn challenges into opportunities. Let me quickly say, for example, we have had, like many other African countries, have lacked electricity, power. And we keep telling people, you see, when this problem of power this is a challenge, but it's an opportunity. If we make investments, you produce electricity, then you avail it to the people who need it, and what they do feeds back and pays for electricity handsomely and keep going. So we always look for these missing things that we should be having or doing, turn them into an opportunity for investment, for business, but there will always be challenges, there will always be opportunities. And in fact, the best way to address a challenge is not just to look at it as a challenge, but to look at it as something, if resolved, creates an opportunity. So that drives you to deal with the challenge so that you get the opportunity. And that's what we do in many ways.
And you've been doing it for quite some time to incredible success. Well, I'm sure many of us wish we had more time to hear from you today. I believe you'll be present later for the President's dinner. Yes, Pascal? Which we're very grateful for your time and attention and your willingness to receive, YPO and YPO members into your world and to let us help in ways that we've been able to. Anytime, thank you. And if you wouldn't mind all helping me thank President Kagame.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.